Think about what happens when you go to the doctor. You're sitting in their office and the doctor walks in. What's the first thing that they do? They don't hand you a copy of their CV. They don't tell you where they went to medical school or which residencies they had or how many patients they've treated successfully. Of course they don't. That would be very strange. Instead, they ask you questions. How are you feeling? What brought you in today? Where does it hurt? What's been going on?
Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor, the podcast. I'm your host, Paulina Cossette. In 2019, I was a political science professor who was fed up with the stress and hostility of academia, not to mention the low pay. I left my tenure-track job and went from barely surviving to thriving as a freelance academic editor. Today, I own Acadia Editing Services, an editing and coaching business that brings in 6 figures a year. In this podcast, I'll discuss the challenges of academia, what academic editing involves, and what life as a freelancer looks like. If you're willing to jump outside your comfort zone, it is possible to find joy, true flexibility, and a profitable and rewarding career as an academic editor. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor. I'm Paulina Cossette. Today I'm talking about something I see constantly, and it is a mistake that costs editors and academic coaches real money and real clients. I know you spent years building your credentials. Maybe you have a PhD, you have publications, speaking engagements, plenty of teaching experience. And now that you're out here in the business world trying to attract private clients, you want to lead with all of it. Your CV, your degrees, where you studied, what you've accomplished. It feels natural because that's what we do in academia. It feels safe because it makes you feel like you can rely on all of this experience, and that's what's going to make you successful as an editor or coach. But here's the thing. Leading with your credentials is a huge mistake. And if you've been trying to attract clients that way, but not succeeding, I suspect that leading with your credentials is what's actually repelling the people that you want to work with. Now, I know that sounds counterintuitive, so I'm going to walk you through why this is important. Think about what happens when you go to the doctor. You're sitting in their office and the doctor walks in. What's the first thing that they do? They don't hand you a copy of their CV. They don't tell you where they went to medical school or which residencies they had or how many patients they've treated successfully. Of course they don't. That would be very strange. Instead, they ask you questions. How are you feeling? What brought you in today? Where does it hurt? What's been going on? They're listening to you. They're gathering information about your specific pain, your specific situation, your specific needs. And here's why that matters. You already trust that they're a doctor. You wouldn't be in their office if they didn't have a medical degree or the credentials or whatever. You know they have those credentials. You know they have that training. That is just understood when you walk into the office and you meet with them. They don't need to prove to you that they have experience and expertise. What you need from them in that moment when you're sitting in their office is understanding. You need empathy. You need to know that they see you, that they hear you, and that they're able to guide you toward relief because they understand what you're struggling with. Now, we academics are trained differently. We're trained to be defensive about our work. We're trained that if someone questions what we say, we have to provide evidence to support everything. Citations, publications, some kind of track record that proves we know what we're talking about. That is just survival in academia. But that is also the opposite of sales. It's the opposite of attracting clients. When you lead with your CV on your website homepage, Or when your about page is a list of your degrees and your publications and your institutional affiliations and the 37 journals that you were a peer reviewer for, you are essentially handing your potential client a credential sheet when what they came looking for was someone who understands their problem and can help them solve it. They don't want your CV, they want human connection. They want compassion. They want kindness. They want support. All of the things that academia doesn't give them. They're not thinking when they come to your website, I wonder what this person's qualifications are. They're wondering whether or not you get what they're going through and whether or not you'll show empathy and compassion towards them. So let me give you a few examples of what this might sound like or what it might look like when you write your homepage copy correctly. Let's take example one. This is an academic editor. Your potential client maybe is a researcher or a PhD student. They've been working on their manuscript for months, maybe years. They're exhausted. They're close to the finish line. And they are terrified that the writing isn't good enough, that a journal will reject it and they will have spent all this time and effort for nothing. If they're a grad student, they're worried that their committee is going to tear it apart. They need help, but they also need to feel like whoever they hire truly understands what they're going through. It's vulnerable to reach out and ask for help. Remember that in academia, we are not taught that you can ask for help when you need it. That's considered a sign of weakness. And so for somebody to look up your website, to start searching for an editor or an academic coach to help them, that requires vulnerability. It requires them to feel comfortable enough to reach out to you, to feel safe enough to reach out to you. So instead of having a homepage that opens with, I'm a PhD trained editor with expertise in APA, MLA, and Chicago style, which, by the way, tells them nothing about whether or not you understand their experience, try opening the body of your homepage with something like this. You've done the research, you know your argument, but every time you sit down to write, it feels like the words aren't doing justice to the work. I help academics and researchers turn complex ideas into clear, polished writing that gets taken seriously. Now, when you're writing for your specific ideal clients, you'll write even more specifically than these general examples. But hopefully you see the difference between I'm a PhD trained editor who specializes in Chicago style and I know what it feels like when the words aren't doing justice to the work. Or I help you polish writing that gets taken seriously. Those are two very different approaches to speaking to your ideal clients. And in that second example, the one where the copy is written effectively, that's the doctor walking in and asking you what hurts, and then showing you that they understand what you're going through because they see these kinds of cases all the time. Part of our job as academic editors and coaches is to normalize the fact that writing is hard, that publishing is ridiculously hard. We have to show people that what they're going through is not strange. It's not unusual, that it is the common experience for academics. It's hard, even for people who are good writers. And so when we can communicate this to them, when we can show them that they're safe with us and that we understand them for their specific situation in that niche that you're focusing on, it's the same way you feel when you go into a doctor's office and you say, I've been struggling with this for so long. I've tried to get help here. I've tried this. I've tried that. Nothing seems to work. And the doctor says, hey, you know what? I get it. I see people with this problem all the time. And here's what I'm going to suggest we do. Think about how that makes you feel when you're sitting in the doctor's office and finally you've met someone who understands and who can lead you forward. As an editor or as a coach, your credentials, your PhD, your expertise, your years of teaching experience, those can come later. You can put that in your bio section. But at the top of your homepage, when you've hooked the client with your headline and they're scrolling down and starting to read more about you, this is where you have to make sure that this potential client feels seen and feels safe. Let's look at example number 2, the academic coach. Your client might be a mid-career academic, or maybe it's a grad student, but they feel like they're drowning. They're juggling teaching and research and service. Maybe they have a family, maybe they're a caregiver, and they constantly feel like they're behind on everything. They've been told their whole career that if they just work harder, it'll get better. But it hasn't gotten better. And so a homepage that focuses on your credentials might say, I'm a former professor with a decade of experience in faculty development and supervising research. If I'm honest, that's boring. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear that. Instead, you should lead with something like this. You didn't spend years earning your degree to feel like you're constantly failing at the job. If you're overwhelmed, behind on your writing, and starting to wonder whether this career is sustainable, you're not broken. You just don't have a system yet. That's what we build together. Do you see what that does? It names the internal experience, the shame, the exhaustion, the self-doubt, before it ever mentions you or your background. The focus is completely on the client. In writing that very basic sentence or two, you are showing them that you understand what they're going through, that you're not going to judge or shame them. You're showing them that you can be their compassionate guide through this process, and you haven't listed a single credential. When the client reads this, they feel like you already know them. Let's go to example number 3, the dissertation coach. In this case, your potential client is in the thick of it. They're ABD. Maybe they've been at this for years. They very likely feel isolated and alone. They're possibly starting to wonder if they're ever going to actually finish at all. The dissertation feels like an enormous weight that they've been carrying alone for so long that they've stopped telling people how bad it really is. If you've written a dissertation, you know very well what that feels like and how hard that is. If you can communicate to your ideal clients that you know what that's like and you found a way out, think about how powerful that is. So instead of leading with, I hold a PhD and have helped over 200 students complete their dissertations, blah, boring, try something like this. The dissertation doesn't have to feel like something you're just trying to survive. If you're stuck, spinning your wheels, or convinced that everyone else knows something you don't, let's fix that. You're closer than you think, and you don't have to keep figuring this out alone. That last line, you don't have to keep figuring this out alone. This is huge for a client like this. It speaks directly to the isolation that so many of us feel, and it positions you as the person who's going to walk alongside them, not above them, looking down, not lecturing them or judging them, not with the fear of repercussions of not being smart enough or talented enough or hardworking enough, which is probably how they feel about their advisor. You're walking with them, without judgment, without shame. Now, in each of these examples, the structure is the same. You name the pain. You acknowledge the internal experience, not just the practical problem that you haven't written enough or that it's hard to write, but how it really feels to be living inside this challenge. And then you position yourself as the supporter who can lead them toward relief. You will share your credentials eventually, further down the homepage, maybe in that bio section at the bottom, but only after you've already started building trust with the person reading this. And this shift in your thinking about how your homepage has to function, this is crucial. You have to go from leading with yourself and defending yourself. Stop being defensive. Stop telling us how many degrees you have and how many publications you have and how talented you are. We don't want to hear about that. It's wonderful. Congratulations. But that's not what your person needs in this moment. When they search for you, they are desperately seeking help for themselves. So we need to stop centering ourselves on the homepage and saying, here's who I am. We need to start centering the client and their needs and say, here's what I understand about where you are and what you're going through. This is why your homepage, which is potentially the first impression or the first comprehensive impression that you make on the potential client, that's why the homepage has to work like that doctor's office visit. The moment someone lands on your site, they should feel like you walked into the room and ask them, what's going on? What do you need? How can I help you? So your headline isn't PhD with 15 years of experience in academic writing. Your headline is something that speaks directly to the problem your client is living through right now. The confusion of trying to publish while they're juggling committee service and teaching and everything else that gets thrown at junior faculty. The exhaustion of working constantly and never getting a real break. The feeling of being alone and stuck writing a massive dissertation without an advisor who actually cares enough about you to show you how to do it successfully. Lead with these struggles. Lead with their world and their experiences. So, here's the big reframe I want you to take away from this episode. The job of all of your marketing copy, but particularly your homepage copy, which your homepage is your home on the internet. This is where people go to get to know you. The job of that copy is to establish that you understand your ideal clients. It is to show them that you are a safe person, that you are someone they can share their struggles with without feeling judged. You can also think about it in this way. This is a little bit of a shift if this helps. We know there are plenty of credentialed editors and coaches out there. But credentials don't differentiate you from anybody else. It doesn't matter that you've published. Many other people have published. It doesn't matter that you have an editing certificate. Many other people have editing certificates. So what? What differentiates you from other editors and coaches out there is your ability to speak your client's language. And all of this ties into the importance of being very clear on your niche. You have to know which clients you serve, which clients you care the most about, the ones that you want desperately to help, so that you know what language they speak. You have to show them that you understand their experience and make it feel so accurate that they feel like you're inside their head. That's what makes somebody reach out to you. That's what differentiates you from other editors and coaches. It's not your credentials. It's your personality. It's your vibe. It's your passion. It's your style of working. Are you a drill sergeant or are you a nurturer? Different people need different things. And you have to make that clear in your homepage copy by the way you talk to them, by the way you show your understanding and your style. Because clients hire people who understand them, not just people who are qualified. Qualifications, credentials, they're not enough. They have to feel a human connection to you. So the next time you sit down to write your homepage headline or maybe rewrite it, or to write your LinkedIn profile or even a social media post, ask yourself this question. Am I talking about me or am I talking about my ideal clients? Am I listing what I've accomplished or am I describing what they're struggling with? That is the key to showing people that you care, to showing people that you understand them and that you can help them. If you want help building a business where clients come to you because they feel understood, not just impressed, that is exactly what we work on inside my program, BAE, Becoming an Academic Editor or Coach. You can learn more and get on the wait list for our next cohort at acadiaediting.com/become-an-editor. If you are a freelance editor who's already doing this work, but you're stuck in low-paying agency contracts, working for peanuts for publishers, and you're ready to start attracting private clients and earning what you deserve for your expertise, go to acadiaediting.com/blueprint. That's where you can get my free website wireframe. This is the structure that I've started to outline here today. It's also the structure that helped me reach my first $10,000 month as an academic editor, and that will give you everything you need to get started. See you next week.
If you're unhappy in academia and you think you might be a good editor or writing coach, check out my course, Becoming an Academic Editor. This digital course is paired with a 12-week group coaching program to support you through your decision to leave academia or not, and to start building a profitable and rewarding academic editing business. Learn more by going to acadiaediting.com/become-an-editor. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.